Okay, so we have our theme. We had search terms. We searched through places like Pixabay to find different things. We downloaded them at the highest resolution we could, or if you don't want to be logged in, you can always do the second highest, as long as it's more than 1,000 by 1,000 pixels. Those go to my downloads folder, and then I move them from my downloads folder onto the desktop, and I make a new folder called references. And in that reference folder, I can view it and arrange it in different ways. And I can use the view options within the folder to make the icon size big enough so I can see what I want with minimal grid spacing. I can even take the text size down just so I can see the images like they're all on a big corkboard for me. And then if I want to, I can view them. I can mark the ones by right-clicking and giving them a color. I use green for the ones I'm most interested in using. And then I can label them by their tag and then show all the greens, right? So here, more than 5, but I've got references that I can use in my sketch. And then I have backups here. I have like my inspiration for the lighting. I have different roots and water. This one's pretty darn good. I might actually mark that green and throw that up there too. And then I don't have any carnivorous plants, so maybe I need some of those. So basically showing you that more reference is usually better. So this is probably my favorite carnivorous plant reference. Oh, wrong color. So mark that as green. You can mark them as multiple colors. I'll just leave it as red. I'll know it's down there. Okay, so this is what I want to reference in my sketch. So I start thinking in 2 different picture plane formats. One that is portrait format, taller than it is wide. One that is landscape format, wider than it is tall. I want to avoid any extreme formats. I want to avoid anything that's super long or super tall, right? Unless I'm doing it specifically for anamorphic widescreen projection or for a specific job, like a mural for a yoga studio that is 10 by 30 feet. So basic rectangle kind of shapes. And I'm going to do this digitally, but you could just sketch this by hand. So first I'm going to clear the little whiteboard sketches I did. Though they were fine, they were conditioned on finding references that worked, right? And I'm doing this on a layer above, so if I want to, I can fade in gently what I had before. So I was thinking I would put kind of the church thing over here. So I'm looking at my church references, and this is maybe my favorite one. If you double click them, they'll open up in preview. The other nice thing about Pixabay is all of these are just JPEGs. And if they're transparent, they're PNGs already cut out. There are no like web photo formats that you have to then export and clean up. There are no like high resolution raw formats that you have to process. And actually I can tell that this is a composite on its own because of the tombstones. They wiped the names from the tombstones. They didn't do that particularly well. But this is what I'm interested in, right? So remember, if you open it, you can also do things like this later on. This is better than collage. You can flip things. You can distort things. You can skew things. So I'm going to start it with that. I'm going to put that up on the hill. So I'll use my brush, and I'm just going to rough in the shape of that kind of cathedral up on the hill. And I might even label it. So I might give it a name. This is if I'm being really, really organized, which is always a good idea. So I'll just rename it 1 Cathedral. And then if I want to, I can label it here as well. That's where that one's going to go. Okay, what's next? That's my middle ground. I'm building from that. So there's like this wall as part of that. It only goes a little bit of a distance. So what do I want in the extreme foreground? I want this one. This plant really up close. This carnivorous plant, kind of Venus flytrap. And I want to put that right here. Middle, center left. So I'm going to put number 2. Okay, then I need the middle ground that kind of fills in. And that's going to be this one for my sketch. Rename it 3, the swamp water. So that's going to fill in here. And then it would be great if I had something in this corner. Kind of frame it a little bit. And I don't want to use those boulders, but I want to use this jungle. So this is going to be 4. And it's got nice out of focus foreground elements. It looks like this. These little boulders and mud go up to that wall. And then middle ground, I think I'm going to need something. I might push this up a little bit. Nice thing about digital is I can just do that like we did with our exercise 1. I can just grab it, move it on up. I think this reference might be really helpful. This is from Angkor Wat in Cambodia. I wish there was more flora here, but this kind of extends that castle wall, that fortress. So I'm going to call that 5. And now I've got 5 references, but that's the minimum I can have. So let's draw it in. So that's going to go kind of like this. And it's mostly for the ground that I want that. So that's 5. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I need a sky. And that might be the last thing, but for now I'll just make this the sky. This jungle canopy, and then it's kind of a placeholder. Because the far background's kind of the easiest thing to massage in. And then I've got all these boulders and extra ruins I can plug in if I need to, right? So I'll just put 6 up here. Okay, that is my horizontal sketch. Roughly, notice these don't need to be perfectly drawn rectangles. Foreground, middle ground, background. My biggest problem with it is this strong horizontal here. I don't love that, at the base of my ruins. So that's why I kind of like this one more. It's a little bit more broken up at the base. But I could fix that with maybe this one. In fact, that's a good idea. I'm going to throw this in front, and it's going to throw number 7 in there. And it's going to be this nice, already cut out royalty-free version. And then if I want, I can kind of clean up my sketch a little bit, just so it only matters that you understand what it is, right? Okay, good. I'm going to save that. I'm going to save it as my assignment 1 sketch. Gothic jungle. Just to the desktop as a PSD. And that's just because I'm sketching this not by hand, but I'm sketching it digitally. Which is a good thing for digital honors to start messing with. Because sketching digitally does have its benefits. Like you saw, I could move things around if I needed to, instead of having to erase anything. All right, next. So I used certain ones, all these numbered ones. So I can even give them a second color, like orange. Right. Now, if I use all those again, I could, or I could start to use others. So maybe to be a little bit more vertical, what if I try using this rock in the immediate foreground? And so instead of calling this 1, I'll call this A. And that's my immediate foreground. And then maybe I want this waterfall and these rocks leading into the middle ground. So we have the water, this pool, more water, da da da. You don't need to draw it well, you just need to know where the borders are, where things overlap. What's called relative perspective. So that's B. And now I need to get to my Gothic elements. I think I want to use 5 again, but I might use 5 flipped. So if I flip it, it gives me a different view of it, and so I can compose it for various reasons. I don't want the focal point here. I want it over here, mostly because the rocks are taller on one side. So I'm going to call that C. And in some ways, the portrait format landscape's a little bit easier because the depth stacks up a little bit more dramatically. And I'm going to just choose my favorite. So this is 5, but it's also C. So now it's 5C because I'm using it for both. It's like fun organizational systems with naming. Then I want some tall trees, maybe some big roots. So I can use maybe these ruins. I'll call this D. Shortcut for renaming is to just click on it and then hit return, and then it will rename it. Otherwise, you have to click on it slowly. So D is going to be here, and that's going to give me that kind of big tree. And then that is only 4, so I need 1 more. And I can throw another temple in there. Let's make this E. So the other temple I'm going to throw in, where is E? There it is. It might be flipped. And you can do this, just really quick flip them if you know you want to use it in a certain orientation. Flip the negative. You can do that right in preview. And I'm going to put that behind the other temple a little bit taller. Ooh, and I can always find like a spooky sky or something as well. All right, now I've got 2 compositions. One that is portrait format, one that is landscape format, both that have at least 5 references. I'm going to let you guys choose. Which one do you think would be a more interesting Gothic jungle composition? Portrait format landscape or landscape format landscape? So 1 vote for this one. Show of hands for this one. All right, that one looks like it's the winner. All right, so I'll save it. This is what I can post today to Canvas. I want all of you to post your full sketch. So I'll edit this. I'll save this as just a JPEG. And then I'll show you exactly what we do with it. So it's important that your sketch is informed by your references, right? Because you can't just already know what references you're going to find. Your ideas are often going to be guided somewhat by the references. So here we go. Throw this in. Make it smaller. Because our digital cameras, they take pretty big pictures. All right, so that is my concept sketch, my guiding plan for compositing other people's pixels